Old age is a stage of life that, although filled with wisdom and experiences, can also bring feelings of invisibility and rejection. As social dynamics change and the people around us may become less present, it's common to feel forgotten or ignored. However, the renowned psychologist Carl Jung offers us a transformative perspective on how to approach these moments. Instead of succumbing to sadness or frustration, Jung suggests that loneliness and apparent rejection can be an opportunity to deepen self-awareness and personal growth. In this video, we will explore how, by adopting a conscious and reflective approach, we can turn the solitude of old age into a path toward a fuller and more authentic life. What you discover may change the way you view life in the years to come. In youth, people often seek external approval as a way to define their identity. However, in old age, this pursuit loses its meaning. Instead, the mature stage challenges us to rediscover our inner value, one that doesn't depend on external recognition. Jung stated that when we stop seeking validation outside of ourselves, we open the door to a more authentic life. This is the time to look inward and accept that the greatest wealth lies in the accumulated experience. The silence of society toward the elderly can be a fertile space for finding new ways to connect. Even when external voices are silent, the inner dialogue amplifies. This stage invites deeper reflection on the meaning of life, relationships, and spirituality. Ask yourself, what have I learned that I can share, even if no one is listening? Wisdom does not dilute in the indifference of others, but grows when cultivated and treasured. Furthermore, old age can become an opportunity to redefine what success means. Jung suggested that by letting go of external expectations, one can discover that true achievement is self-realization. In this sense, rejection is not an obstacle but a pathway for internal growth. The accumulated experience does not disappear because the world does not value it. Instead, it becomes an inner compass that guides us toward a renewed purpose. The elderly are not only custodians of their personal stories, but also carriers of a collective legacy. In ancient cultures, the elderly were the living connection to traditions and universal truths. This role remains essential, even if the modern world has forgotten it. Old age should not be seen as a retreat, but as a time for active introspection and an opportunity to share wisdom. While society may forget to listen to you, remember that the value of what you know does not diminish because others do not perceive it. Instead of fighting indifference, use this stage as a time of spiritual renewal. The wisdom the world does not hear is still valuable. Write your experiences, share your lessons with those willing to receive them, and find in your lived years the foundation for a fulfilling life. External silence may be the perfect invitation to listen to the voice of your soul, a voice that never stops speaking. Indifference can be one of the harshest blows to the ego, especially in old age when people expect to be recognized for the fruits of a lifetime. The ego, as part of our conscious psyche, constantly seeks external validation, approval, attention, and admiration. When these do not come, the ego suffers, interpreting the lack of recognition as a sign of uselessness or rejection. But according to Jung, the key is not to avoid suffering but to understand it. Only by facing it can we transcend and transform it. For Jung, the ego is a fundamental part of the psyche, but it does not define who we are in essence. It is merely a fragment of the self designed to interact with the external world. However, we often confuse our being with our ego. This leads us to perceive social indifference as a threat to our identity. If no one listens to us or sees us, does that mean we've ceased to exist on some level? This is an illusion created by the ego that needs to be unmasked so we can move toward a fuller, more authentic life. When facing indifference, we may fall into two traps: self-pity or resentment. Self-pity makes us victims of circumstances, reinforcing the idea that our value depends on others. On the other hand, resentment pushes us to blame the world for not giving us the recognition we believe we deserve. Both reactions are understandable but limiting. Jung proposed a third way: to use these experiences as a mirror to look inward. The wounded ego is, in fact, an opportunity for personal growth. When we realize that external recognition does not define our value, we begin to connect with deeper parts of our psyche. In this process, we stop depending on others' approval and start valuing our own perspective. Indifference can be an invitation to explore who we truly are, beyond societal expectations. For example, instead of asking why others don't value you, question how you value yourself. How much time do you spend appreciating your internal achievements, your resilience, and your capacity for learning? This reflection can open a space for self-care and self-affirmation. When you value yourself from within, external silence loses its power over you. Moreover, indifference can be seen as a mirror of the relationships we have cultivated. Jung encouraged us to observe the patterns of our interactions. Have we sought relationships that nourish us emotionally, or only superficial connections? The lack of attention from others can be a call to redefine our relationships, prioritizing those based on mutual respect and deep understanding. On this journey, it is essential to learn to dialogue with our wounded ego. It's not about ignoring its pain, but about listening to it without letting it take control. Ask yourself, what part of me needs to heal? What insecurities are being triggered by indifference? This internal dialogue may be uncomfortable, but it is also liberating. As we understand the roots of our reactions, we can free ourselves from old wounds and create a more balanced relationship with our ego. Ultimately, indifference invites us to remember that the ego is only a mask. Although useful, it is not our essence. By transcending its need for approval, we can connect with the Jungian self, that part of our psyche that is whole and sufficient in itself. The self does not seek recognition because it already understands its inherent value. In this sense, indifference becomes a tool for individuation, the process of becoming who we truly are. In summary, the wounded ego is not an enemy but a teacher. Indifference, though painful, pushes us to look beyond appearances and find an inexhaustible source of strength within. When we stop seeking outside what we already possess inside, external rejection loses its power, and we discover a freedom that only self-knowledge can offer. According to Carl Jung, archetypes are universal patterns that reside in the collective unconscious and guide our lives in ways we often don't consciously perceive. In old age, two archetypes often emerge with strength: the wise one and the hermit. These represent complementary aspects of the human experience at this stage of life, offering us valuable lessons to face indifference and find purpose. The wise one is an archetype that symbolizes the accumulation of knowledge and the ability to pass it on. It is not only intellectual wisdom, but a deep understanding of life born from experience and reflection. In old age, the inner wise one calls us to share our lessons with those willing to listen. Although modern society may seem deaf, there will always be individuals or contexts where our wisdom is valued. This archetype reminds us that our existence has a transcendent purpose beyond external recognition. On the other hand, the hermit represents introspection and connection with the essential. Unlike the wise one, the hermit does not seek to transmit knowledge to others, but to integrate it into his own life. This archetype teaches us to value solitude as a space for self-discovery and inner peace. Instead of fearing isolation, the hermit uses it as an opportunity to reconnect with their true self. In practice, these archetypes can manifest in various ways. The wise one might lead you to write your memoirs, share advice with younger generations, or participate in community activities where your experience is valued. The hermit, on the other hand, might invite you to meditate, explore spirituality, or simply enjoy stillness and silence. However, these archetypes are not mutually exclusive. Both can coexist in harmony. The key is to find a balance between sharing and introspecting. For example, you can dedicate time to reflect on your experiences and then, when ready, find ways to pass them on. This balance is essential to living a full and meaningful old age. Moreover, recognizing these archetypes allows us to face indifference with greater resilience. The wise one reminds us that our knowledge has value, even if it is not always immediately recognized. The hermit, for their part, helps us accept solitude as a natural part of life, rather than resist or fear it. The integration of these archetypes not only enriches our personal experience, but also contributes to collective well-being. Although society may seem disconnected, every action inspired by the wise one or the hermit has the potential to generate a positive impact. From the inspiration you give to a young person to the peace you radiate in your surroundings, your actions matter. In conclusion, the archetypes of the wise one and the hermit are powerful allies in old age. They teach us to find meaning in our experiences, to value solitude as a space for growth, and to share our wisdom generously. By embracing them, we transform indifference into an opportunity to connect with the essential and discover new forms of purpose in this stage of life. Carl Jung defined synchronicity as a meaningful coincidence between events that do not appear to have an apparent causal relationship, but are connected by their significance. This concept, which challenges traditional notions of cause and effect, takes on special relevance in old age, when the connections between the inner and outer worlds seem to deepen. In times when the social environment may ignore you or relegate you to silence, paying attention to synchronicities can reveal a new way of communicating with the universe. In old age, synchronicities become signs that, even though the outside world may not seem to respond, the universe has subtle ways of communicating. These meaningful coincidences can appear as unexpected encounters, revealing dreams, or simple moments in which something seemingly trivial resonates deeply with your thoughts or emotions. Jung believed that these experiences were not coincidences, but manifestations of the collective unconscious, a greater connection that transcends the personal. For example, imagine feeling lonely and thinking about an old friend you lost contact with years ago. Hours later, you receive a call or message from that person, as if the thought had created an invisible bridge between you both. Or perhaps you are struggling to find purpose in this stage of your life, and suddenly find a book, a conversation, or even a sign on the street that seems to offer you direct answers. These coincidences not only alleviate the sense of isolation, but also remind you that you are part of a larger web. Synchronicity is more common in times of personal transformation, particularly in old age, when both internal and external changes are occurring. These coincidences seem to multiply. According to Jung, this happens because the internal movement of the psyche resonates with events in the external world. It's as if the unconscious sends signals through the environment to guide you in your process of individuation. In this sense, synchronicities are invitations to explore new paths, to dive deeper into areas you may have neglected, and to connect more consciously with them. To connect more consciously with synchronicity, it's important to develop a sensitivity toward the symbolic. This means paying attention to the small details of everyday life and reflecting on their meaning. Keeping a journal, for example, can help you record coincidences and patterns that might otherwise go unnoticed in the hustle of daily life. Over time, you might notice how these seemingly disconnected events offer clues about your spiritual and emotional path. Another way to explore synchronicity is through dreams. Jung emphasized that dreams are portals to the unconscious and often contain symbolic messages that can shed light on our doubts or concerns. In old age, dreams can become particularly significant as the conscious mind tends to relax, allowing the unconscious to speak more clearly. Have you ever dreamed of a solution to a problem or someone who later appears in your life? These experiences are not mere coincidences. They are manifestations of synchronicity working in your favor. However, synchronicity doesn't always provide clear or immediate answers. Sometimes, these coincidences invite us to contemplate bigger questions about our life and purpose. For example, if you are facing an emotional challenge and repeatedly encounter a symbol, such as an animal, number, or phrase, it could be a sign to reflect on its meaning in your current situation. Rather than seeking logical explanations, allow these events to awaken your curiosity and guide you toward greater self-understanding. Synchronicity can also be a source of comfort in moments of loss or sadness. These meaningful coincidences may remind us that we are not alone and that something greater is supporting us. Jung described how, even in the darkest periods of his life, these unexpected connections offered him a renewed sense of hope and purpose. In old age, this type of experience can be deeply healing, helping you find meaning amidst uncertainty. Finally, accepting synchronicity means adopting an attitude of openness toward life, rather than seeing the world as an indifferent or random place. Jung invites us to recognize that each event has the potential to teach us something. By paying attention to these signs, we begin to see life as an ongoing dialogue between our psyche and the universe. And even though external recognition may decrease in this stage, synchronicity shows us that the universe remains deeply involved in our journey. The shadow, that hidden side of our personality described by Carl Jung, is one of the most influential and transformative forces within the human psyche. It consists of those aspects we consider undesirable, shameful, or incompatible with the image we want to project to the world. Rather than disappearing, the shadow hides in our unconscious, waiting for the moment to manifest. Old age, being a stage of introspection and reduced participation in active social roles, is a key period to face it. Accepting the shadow means looking at those repressed aspects with compassion and curiosity. It's not about judging or rejecting them again, but about integrating them as an essential part of our human experience. In old age, the shadow can appear in many forms: regrets about past decisions, envy toward the younger generation, fear of loneliness, or even emotions you thought were overcome, such as resentment or anger. These emotions are not enemies. They are messengers of parts of yourself that need to be recognized and healed. Jung emphasized that ignoring the shadow does not eliminate it. On the contrary, it makes it stronger. For example, if you feel frustrated because others don't value you, that frustration could be an opportunity to explore what part of you desperately seeks external validation. Perhaps, for much of your life, you conditioned your self-esteem on the recognition of others, leaving little room to value your internal achievements. Recognizing this not only alleviates discomfort, but also opens the door to personal transformation. A practical exercise for working with the shadow in old age is to reflect on moments that trigger intense emotions. For example, if you feel uncomfortable seeing a young person receiving praise, ask yourself why. Is it envy or perhaps an unfulfilled desire? What part of you needs attention? The answer could reveal a forgotten dream or a passion you set aside due to life's demands. Exploring these emotions honestly can help you rediscover aspects of yourself that enrich your present. The shadow doesn't only contain negative elements, it also holds repressed positive qualities, such as talents you didn't develop, desires you silenced out of fear of judgment, or emotions you forbade yourself to feel. For example, someone who was always the responsible one in their family may discover in their shadow a deep desire to break free from that role and allow themselves to be more spontaneous. In old age, when many external expectations diminish, these forgotten parts can resurface, bringing you new vitality. Accepting the shadow also means confronting past regrets and mistakes. Rather than avoiding them, Jung suggested reinterpreting them as necessary lessons for our development. If you made mistakes, ask yourself what you learned from them and how they contributed to shaping the person you are today. This approach doesn't deny the pain, but transforms it into wisdom. Thus, what once seemed like a burden becomes a valuable resource for facing the present, with greater clarity and balance. Another important aspect of working with the shadow in old age is accepting mortality. Often we repress the fear of death or avoid talking about it, but by doing so, we deny a fundamental part of our humanity. Jung viewed the confrontation with death not as something morbid, but as an opportunity to gain a deeper understanding of life. By accepting finitude, we value each moment more intensely and find a renewed sense of purpose. In practical terms, creativity can be a powerful tool for integrating the shadow. Jung recommended the use of active imagination, a technique that allows dialogue with the hidden parts of our psyche through art, writing, or even meditation. In old age, this practice can be particularly liberating, as it not only connects you to your unconscious, but also provides a means to express parts of yourself that may never have had a voice. Accepting the shadow is not a process that is completed overnight. It is an ongoing journey that requires patience, courage, and a willingness to look inside yourself without judgment. But the rewards of this work are immense. By integrating the shadow, you not only free yourself from patterns that limit your growth, but also come closer to the wholeness of your being, experiencing an inner peace that transcends external circumstances. In old age, the shadow ceases to be something to fear and becomes an ally in living a more authentic and fulfilling life. Jung reminds us that only by accepting our darkest parts can we shine with all our light. This is the gift of working with the shadow, transforming it into a source of wisdom and power that guides you toward wholeness in your golden years. According to Carl Jung, complexes act as emotional knots that influence our behavior and emotions, often without our conscious awareness. These complexes are not necessarily bad. They are part of the natural functioning of our psyche. However, when we fail to recognize them or work through them, they can become obstacles to our personal fulfillment. Old age, with its reduction of external distractions and its tendency toward introspection, offers a unique opportunity to address these complexes and free ourselves from their negative influence. A common complex in old age is the abandonment complex, which can manifest when children become independent, friends or partners pass away, or society seems to devalue those who are no longer in the peak of productivity. This complex can bring feelings of uselessness, rejection, or loneliness. Although these emotions are understandable, they are also an invitation to reflect on our own beliefs about personal value. What does it really mean to be valuable? Does it depend on external recognition? Another complex that may resurface in this stage is that of inferiority. Throughout life, comparisons with others may have accumulated in the form of insecurities, and in old age, these can intensify. For example, seeing younger people with energy and success, it is easy to fall into the trap of feeling less. However, Jung reminds us that these comparisons are illusory because each individual is on their own developmental path. Freeing ourselves from complexes first involves recognizing them. This is a crucial step, as complexes tend to operate in the unconscious, manifesting indirectly through disproportionate reactions or recurring emotions. Ask yourself, what situations trigger intense emotions in me? Why do certain comments or events affect me more than they should? Identifying these patterns is the first step to dismantling them. The next step is to address the complex with compassion and without judgment. Jung emphasized that the unconscious does not respond to force or denial. It requires understanding. For example, if you identify an abandonment complex, explore its roots. Perhaps it stems from a childhood where you felt neglected, or maybe from a more recent event, like the loss of a loved one. Recognizing this connection doesn't mean reliving the pain, but understanding how the complex was formed and what purpose it served at the time. A powerful tool for working with complexes is active imagination, a method developed by Jung. This process involves directly engaging with the complex through writing, meditation, or even art. Imagine the complex as a figure with whom you can converse. Ask it what it wants from you and what it needs to stop dominating your emotions. This approach may seem unusual, but it is surprisingly effective for accessing the depths of the unconscious. Another useful technique is symbolic integration. Jung believed that complexes could be activated by integrating them into a broader narrative of meaning. For example, if an inferiority complex tells you that you are no longer useful, reflect on the unique contributions you have made in your life and how these form part of a larger story. By reinterpreting the complex from a wider perspective, you reduce its power over you. Additionally, it is crucial to develop a stronger relationship with the self, the core of the psyche. According to Jung, the self represents the totality of who you are beyond the fragments of your personality that complexes try to control. Connecting with this part of you involves cultivating practices that help you feel whole and at peace. This may include meditation, yoga, art, or simply spending time in nature. Finally, remember that complexes do not disappear entirely, but can transform. Instead of being forces that control you, they can become allies that teach you about your vulnerabilities and strengths. For example, an abandonment complex can transform into an opportunity to develop a deeper relationship with yourself, while an inferiority complex can drive you to recognize your true value without external comparisons. In old age, working with complexes is not just an act of emotional liberation, but a step toward the total integration of your being. It is an opportunity to close cycles, heal old wounds, and prepare to live this stage with renewed authenticity. Carl Jung teaches us that confronting our shadows, even the most difficult complexes, is the path to individuation and ultimately a fuller and more conscious life. The mandala, as a symbol of wholeness, invites us to see our life from an integrated perspective. In old age, this exercise is not only a review of the past, but a powerful tool to find meaning in the present and project purpose into the future. Once you have traced the circle and divided the stages of your life, let each section represent an honest and complete reflection of your experiences. To symbolize childhood, you could include images of your earliest memories, those moments that shaped your perception of the world. Perhaps a toy, a special place, or a significant person. These symbols are not just memories, but representations of the roots that defined your initial identity. In the youth section, you could reflect the moments when you felt challenged, the important decisions you made, and the passions that led to your first aspirations. The adulthood segment is where most of your experiences, relationships, work, successes, and failures likely accumulate. Here you can symbolize moments when you felt pride, the challenges you faced, and the connections you forged with others. This is also an opportunity to reflect on the commitments you have made and how they have shaped your journey. Finally, the segment of old age arrives, where you can focus on the present. Ask yourself, what does this stage mean to me? What do I want to focus on? Write or draw what inspires you at this moment, the activities you enjoy and the relationships you value. This segment doesn't have to be filled with symbols referring to the past. It can be a space for what is still to come. The mandala can also include a core, a central figure that represents the purpose or meaning that runs through your entire life. For some, this core might be family. For others, a passion, an ideal, or even a spiritual connection. By defining this central figure, you are creating a guide to maintain balance and focus on the aspects you consider most important. In addition to being an introspective exercise, building your mandala has therapeutic benefits. Jung believed that by visualizing our life as a coherent whole, we reduce the anxiety that comes from feeling that our experiences are fragmented or meaningless. This process of integration helps us reconcile with the ups and downs of life, accepting that everything, even the painful moments, has a place and a purpose. The mandala can also evolve over time. Once created, it is not a static object. You can revisit it, add new symbols, remove others, or even create additional versions that reflect your emotional or spiritual states at different times. This flexibility makes the mandala a dynamic mirror of your ever-changing psyche, yet deeply connected to your essence. Another important aspect is that the mandala does not have to be limited to a visual plane. You can also construct it in the form of a narrative, writing about each stage of your life and connecting it into a coherent story. This verbal approach can be especially helpful if you prefer writing as a medium of expression. What matters is that it allows you to recognize the deep meaning of your experiences and how they all come together to form the complete being that you are today. Additionally, by constructing your mandala, you may discover recurring patterns or themes in your life. Perhaps you notice that you have always sought connection with others, or that adversity has been a catalyst for your personal growth. These patterns are not coincidental. They reveal the archetypes and fundamental values that have guided your journey. Recognizing them allows you to live with more intention and alignment with your principles. Finally, the mandala can be a tool to share your story with others. Showing your mandala to your loved ones or explaining it can be a powerful way to convey your learnings and leave an emotional and spiritual legacy. Even if you don't find an immediate audience, the act of creating it is already a legacy in itself, a tangible proof of your existence and your path. In summary, creating the mandala of your life is an act of deep connection with yourself. It is an exercise that invites you to look back with gratitude, toward the present with acceptance, and toward the future with hope. By integrating your experiences into this universal symbol, you come to understand that your life is not a series of disconnected events, but a meaningful whole filled with learnings, challenges, and unique moments that have made you who you are today. Loneliness, far from being an emptiness, can become a bridge to self-knowledge and spiritual connection. Jung believed that by stepping away from external demands, we have the opportunity to dive into the depths of our psyche. This retreat does not need to be seen as isolation, but as an active process of exploration where we can reconnect with our emotions, desires, and life purpose. In old age, when responsibilities and relationships change, this opportunity presents itself more strongly. One of the main challenges of loneliness is dealing with the fear that often accompanies it. Many people associate loneliness with feelings of abandonment, uselessness, or even hopelessness. However, Jung considered these feelings not as enemies but as signals that invite us to pay attention to the parts of our psyche that have been ignored. Instead of fleeing from these emotions, we can face them with courage, asking ourselves, what are they teaching me about myself? What areas of my life need care or transformation? A key aspect of loneliness is its ability to create a space for reflection. In daily routines, it's easy to fall into automatic habits and avoid deep questions about our existence. Loneliness, however, forces us to stop and look inward. This process may be uncomfortable at first, but it is also incredibly liberating. By spending time with yourself, you can begin to identify beliefs and thought patterns that no longer serve you, replacing them with others that are more aligned with your essence. Loneliness is also a time to reconnect with the sacred. In many spiritual traditions, retreat and introspection are seen as necessary practices to attain greater understanding of life. Hermits, monks, and sages throughout history have sought loneliness not as a way to escape the world, but as a path to connect with the transcendental. Jung described this connection as integration with the self, the deep core of our psyche that transcends the ego and the limitations of the material world. In practice, there are many ways to explore the spiritual meaning of loneliness. Meditation, for example, is a powerful tool that allows us to observe our thoughts and emotions without judgment. Spending time in nature can also be transformative, as it connects us to something larger than ourselves. Even simple activities like journaling or practicing art can become introspective rituals that help us express and understand what we carry inside. Loneliness also offers the opportunity to reinterpret our past relationships. When we are surrounded by others, it's easy to focus on the immediate and neglect the deeper meaning of our connections. In solitude, we can reflect on the impact others have had on our lives, both positively and negatively. This process of reevaluation not only helps us heal old wounds, but also allows us to appreciate more deeply the moments and people that have enriched our existence. A related concept that Jung explored is numinosity, that sense of the sacred that often arises in moments of deep introspection. In solitude, we can experience this feeling when we realize we are connected to something greater than ourselves, whether it be the universe, nature, or the collective unconscious. This feeling can be incredibly comforting, reminding us that even when we are physically alone, we are never truly disconnected. Finally, it is important to note that solitude does not have to be permanent to be transformative. Spending time with yourself does not mean isolating yourself completely from the world, but finding a balance between introspection and interaction. Well-managed solitude can be a space for recharging, allowing you to return to the world with a clearer perspective and a stronger connection to yourself. In summary, solitude in old age is not a punishment nor a lack. It is an invitation. It is a time to reconnect with yourself, heal old wounds, discover new passions, and reconnect with the sacred. Jung reminds us that by facing loneliness with openness and curiosity, we can transform it into one of the most meaningful and enriching experiences of our lives. Solitude, then, is not a void, but a path to wholeness. The inner dialogue has the power to shape not only the way you perceive yourself, but also how you face the challenges of life. In old age, this dialogue takes on an even deeper dimension, as the slower pace and the reduction of external demands offer space for reflection. However, this time may also allow critical thoughts or feelings of regret to arise, thoughts that were previously hidden among the daily busyness. Carl Jung invites us to transform this inner dialogue into a tool for personal transformation, rather than a source of conflict. A first step in improving the inner dialogue is to observe it carefully. Often the words we use to speak to ourselves are automatic, learned in the past and repeated without questioning. For example, phrases like, "I'm no longer useful" or "I haven't achieved anything important" often arise in this stage of life, especially if we face social indifference. Jung suggested that these thoughts should not be taken as truths, but as messages from the unconscious that can be analyzed to understand their origin and transform them into something more useful. To begin this change, ask yourself where these ideas come from. Perhaps they stem from early experiences of constant comparisons with others, or from social standards that value youth and productivity over wisdom and experience. Recognizing that these beliefs are not yours but acquired is a key step in freeing yourself from them. An effective technique is to actively challenge negative thoughts. For example, if your mind insists on telling you that you no longer have anything to offer, respond with concrete examples of how your experience has made a difference in the lives of others, whether through small interactions or broader contributions. This process is not an exercise in empty optimism, but a restructuring of your perception to align it with reality. The inner dialogue can also be enriched through gratitude. Instead of focusing on what is missing or the mistakes made, direct your attention to what you have accomplished and the qualities you value in yourself. Write down 3 things you are grateful for each day, either about your life or about yourself. This simple exercise can rewire your mind to focus on the positive, strengthening your self-esteem and helping you face life with greater serenity. Moreover, Jung emphasized the importance of integrating the different parts of our psyche. Within us, there are contradictory voices, one that encourages us and another that criticizes us, one that wants to move forward and another that fears change. These internal tensions are natural and reflect the complex functioning of the human mind. Rather than trying to silence the critical voices, Jung suggested listening to them and dialoguing with them. What fears underlie these criticisms? What need are they expressing? This inner dialogue can become an opportunity to get to know yourself better and reconcile with yourself. Another helpful approach is the practice of conscious affirmations. While negative thoughts often arise automatically, positive affirmations must be introduced deliberately. It is not about repeating empty phrases, but finding statements that resonate with your inner truth. For example, "My worth does not depend on the opinions of others," or "The experience I've accumulated is a gift I can share." Repeating these affirmations, especially in moments of doubt, can help you reframe your mindset. The inner dialogue also includes how you relate to your memories. In old age, it's common to reflect on the past, and this can be fertile ground for learning or a minefield of regrets. If you find yourself reliving mistakes or decisions you wish you had made differently, try reframing them as lessons. Ask yourself, what did I learn from that experience? How did it help me grow? This approach does not deny the pain of the past, but transforms it into a source of wisdom rather than an emotional burden. Finally, remember that the inner dialogue does not have to be a solitary conversation. Speaking with yourself can be complemented by writing in a journal, where you can express your thoughts and emotions to understand them better. You can also seek the support of a therapist, a mentor, or a trusted friend who can help you identify patterns in your inner dialogue that you may not have noticed. In summary, the quality of our inner dialogue defines the quality of our relationship with ourselves. In old age, when the noise of the outside world diminishes, you have the unique opportunity to build an internal conversation that is compassionate, constructive, and full of self-awareness. Carl Jung reminds us that by reconciling with our inner voices, we not only achieve greater peace of mind, but also get closer to our true essence. Speaking to yourself with kindness and truth is the most powerful act you can perform to live a fulfilling life at any stage. Rejection is one of the most universal human experiences, and in old age, when social and family dynamics change, it can feel more acute. Friends and family may be less present, society may place more value on youth and productivity, and this can create a sense of invisibility. However, Jung saw rejection not as an end, but as an opportunity to embark on the process of individuation, which is the journey toward the wholeness of being. This process frees us from the need for external approval and connects us with the most authentic part of ourselves. Rejection hurts because it directly touches the ego, that part of our psyche that seeks validation and recognition. When society, those close to us, or even circumstances seem to suggest that we are no longer relevant, our ego interprets this as a threat to our identity. However, Jung encourages us not to dwell on this initial wound, but instead to see rejection as an invitation to explore the depths of our psyche. The first step in transforming rejection into individuation is to change our perspective. Instead of seeing it as a denial of our value, we can interpret it as a moment of liberation. For much of our lives, our decisions are shaped by the expectations of others, being good parents, succeeding at work, pleasing society. In old age, many of these pressures disappear, and although this may feel like a loss, it is also an opportunity to rediscover who you are beyond these roles. Jung described individuation as the process of integrating all parts of our psyche, including those we have ignored or rejected. This includes both our strengths and our vulnerabilities, our light and our shadows. External rejection can act as a mirror, showing us which parts of ourselves need attention. For example, if you feel that others no longer value you, perhaps it is time to ask yourself, do I value myself? Am I recognizing all that I am and all that I have achieved? Rejection can also be a chance to explore new dimensions of your life. Instead of dwelling on the doors that have closed, ask yourself, what new doors might open? Perhaps there's a skill you've always wanted to learn, a forgotten passion to rekindle, or simply the freedom to enjoy activities you once felt you had no right to prioritize. Individuation is not a fixed destination, but an ongoing journey, where every experience, including rejection, can lead you to a more authentic version of yourself. A powerful tool for navigating rejection is active imagination, a practice developed by Jung that involves engaging with aspects of your psyche that feel wounded or overlooked. For instance, if you feel you've lost relevance to others, imagine that feeling as a figure you can converse with. Ask it what it needs from you, what it fears, and how you can integrate it instead of rejecting it. This process not only helps relieve emotional pain, but also allows you to reconnect with neglected parts of your being. It's also essential to cultivate an internal sense of purpose that is not reliant on external factors. In individuation, purpose is not measured by tangible accomplishments, but by your connection to your deeper essence. What drives you to keep going? What activities, thoughts, or connections make you feel truly alive? In old age, these questions can lead you to a level of self-awareness you may not have explored before. Rejection can also prompt us to reassess our relationships. During this process, you may realize that some connections were shallow or based on expectations that no longer hold. While this can be painful, it can also liberate you to seek more meaningful and authentic relationships. Jung emphasized that by working on ourselves, we also transform the quality of our connections with others. Ultimately, transforming rejection into individuation means accepting that life is a continuous cycle of change. What once seemed stable or secure may fall apart, but in its place, new possibilities will emerge. Old age, far from being a time of decline, is a stage of renewal, where you can release what no longer serves you and fully embrace who you are. In summary, while rejection can be painful at first, it offers an opportunity for personal transformation. Jung reminds us that every experience, even the most challenging, can be a step toward individuation, a journey toward becoming our most complete and authentic selves. By accepting rejection as a part of life and using it as a catalyst for inner growth, we can discover a sense of freedom and purpose that doesn't depend on external validation, but on our own connection to being.